Be the change you want to see. Make a difference by giving your money a purpose, a mission to do good. Welcome to Money with Mission, where we talk to individuals, businesses, and organizations who are taking the lead and whose actions are impacting the well-being of their communities and the world at large.
Welcome to Money with Mission. Today I have with me Michael Manthei. He's a good friend of mine. Michael is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. His background includes founding his first company at the tender age of 21 and humanitarian efforts in more than 20 countries. Within 4 years of leaving full-time ministry, Michael and his family had achieved financial freedom. After achieving financial freedom and retiring in his early 30s, Michael quickly realized a life of leisure was unfulfilling and turned his focus toward creating an investment education community and investment opportunities for others. Today, Michael actively syndicates a variety of real estate projects, owns and operates a property management company, and hosts the Elevate Investing Group, where they teach about financial freedom and mentor others in syndicating deals. Again, Michael's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania with his beautiful wife and 3 children, a little bit of snow. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much, Felicia. I'm excited to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk about you. Talk about you and with you. Your background is very interesting. Tell us about your first company at age 21.
Well, that was a construction company. I started doing high-end decorative concrete.
Okay.
So, you pour concrete, but then you make it look like stone or brick or things like that. Yeah, it was great experience, great learning opportunity. It's always great to jump in and learn in the real world, which I feel is the most value I got from that. Took me a couple years to figure out how to operate in business. And about that time, I felt like I was being called into the mission field. So sold that company and started my humanitarian and mission efforts.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. I'm going to go back a little bit. Is your family entrepreneurial? What made you have the guts, do you think, to start a company at age 21?
Well, you can erase this part if you don't like my answer. My family is not entrepreneurial and not handy at all. My dad's an intellectual. So I started the company, honestly, because I felt like in prayer one day, God asked me to start a company.
Okay.
And I am glad I was ignorant enough not to realize how ridiculous that was. I'd been in construction for 9 months at that point. I did not know how to swing a hammer or cut a board. 9 months later, I am opening the doors on my own company. So looking back now, it seems crazy. Back then, it was more about trying to get to know if this voice I was hearing in my heart was real or not, and didn't have a lot to lose. So I went for it.
Sometimes I think that not knowing that you don't know, and you're 21 and you're like, we are invincible at 21, right? What the heck? You hear it, you're told, you're led that way. I'm just doing it because that's what I heard. That's what I'm feeling like I should do. That's amazing. Yeah, we could talk about that kind of thing and hearing those voices, understanding and knowing in your heart what you're supposed to do, but being afraid to take that step.
Yep.
It's a big thing. That's really exciting at 21. Okay. So then after you started that just took you so many places. That's really interesting to me. Just if you hadn't done that, look back, if you hadn't done that, you would just end up in a completely different place than you are today. So you follow that voice. That's really inspiring.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me was my heart was 100% for God. It still is. But when I felt like he asked me to go into business, for the 2.5 years that I had my company, I struggled every day feeling like I was a second-class citizen. Because every time I went to church, they never put the business owners up on stage to say, hey guys, so-and-so is taking a risk in their business. Let's support them. Let's pray for them. It was always, here's a missionary, here's a new pastor. So no one had ever said this, but I developed this complex, you could call it, in my mind that people in business were almost inferior in God's eyes to people in ministry. And it's crazy because the only reason I was in business was because I felt like God asked me to. but still I struggled with that. So when I was in business a couple years and I felt like God say, hey, let's go into ministry, I thought that was the greatest thing that had ever happened. But then as I was in ministry for years, I got healed of that. It's a lie. It's a lie to think that one person's calling is greater than somebody else's.
Hmm. Hmm.
So as I got healed from that, God started talking to me again about finances, about going into the financial world. And so here I am today, back in business, feeling, but the difference today is I don't have any of that double-mindedness.
Yeah.
I feel absolutely in alignment with who He's created me to be, doing what I'm doing. So yeah, it's been a great journey to kind of come through that.
And you're providing what you feel like you're put here to provide, what you're here to do. You got there. Interesting.
100%.
How long were you in ministry?
So I did full-time ministry for about 7 years.
Okay. And that's
Yep.
what took you to 20 countries?
Yep. Traveled all over, all the continents except Antarctica, and, leadership development, in across the oceans with, team members. So I actually became the conflict resolution person. We took a team of 16 to New Zealand for a year, all living in the same house. And so I got to be the one to help resolve disputes. And for me, that was my growth as a leader. It was digging a foundation in me. So, part of my story can sound like we accomplish things quickly, but when you have a deep foundation, you can support the weight, which I see so many people kind of wanting the exterior and wanting it now without realizing the healthiest way to get the exterior is to build yourself inside. So the character's there, the leadership is there, so that as you start carrying responsibility, you can support it. And I love always being bigger inside than what I have on the outside.
Yep. Yep. Because that character cracking is not a good thing. So you have to have that nice, that just like you said, that solid foundation so that when that pressure from the outside starts pushing on you, your character is going to hold up and it's not going to have cracks and that kind of thing. And you started that a long way. I don't know. How old are you, Michael? If you don't mind telling us, like,
Before you say something you'll regret, I'm 38.
38. So
Yep.
still 21 is still a long time ago.
Mhm.
So, and you even, the foundation was started before that for you to even listen to the words, to feel that in your heart, to know what you're supposed to do and have the guts to go forward. So all the stuff that happened past 21 is just building on that character that you already had started on. Yes? Is that what you
Right.
feel?
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. Yep,
Okay.
100%.
Okay. So now you're in the mission, you're doing your missionary work, you're traveling all around the world, you're becoming a better leader, you're learning more and more about yourself, and now you're led to to get back into business. Was that a shock to you or did you just like take that in stride?
Uh, it was a little bit of a shock, yeah. And honestly, when I felt like God talked to me about going back into the business world and specifically into finance, to me, in my context, the only thing I knew about that was banking.
Okay.
So I actually applied for a couple bank teller jobs. Like I didn't know what else to do. I figured I'd start at a bank and work my way up. Went back to school I had a 2-year degree, but pursued a 4-year degree in finance. And I'm honestly so grateful that that wasn't the path. It started me in the right direction, but I love what I'm doing today. It's kind of outside the formal financial
Yeah.
powers that be.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you're working with everyday people, helping them get ahead and structuring things. So I love it.
So how did you get from I think I'm supposed to be a bank teller or not knowing what part of finance to get to real estate investment? That's kind of a jump to me.
Yeah. Well, so I moved back from New Zealand after ministry.
Mhm.
Went and visited my family in Minnesota, and started talking with this young lady in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I actually moved out here to get to know her more.
Okay.
And then the second day I was out here, I got offered a position with a local company in the decorative concrete, helping to manage this decorative concrete company.
Okay.
So that was my business, and I felt like that was an open door for me that I was to take. So started right away at an awesome job and helped him for a couple of years while marrying my wife, getting established together. And then her and I started buying real estate. And then that kind of has taken off and has very clearly been the direction that I'm to be in.
Well, okay, so it sounds like you just started. What drove you to do that? Did you read Rich Dad Poor Dad? What was your trigger to actually buy your first property that wasn't what you're going to live in, that you're going to rent to somebody else?
Yep, Rich Dad Poor Dad was absolutely it. So while I was in ministry, somebody gave me that book. I read it, and really that line where he talks about achieving a point where your investment income
Mhm.
exceeds your monthly expenses and then
Yeah.
having the ability to retire, that got lodged in me from that book. And I
Mhm.
didn't even know how deep. At that time, I wasn't like a goal writing person. So it wasn't like I ever made it an official goal, but it definitely got lodged in me. So when my wife and I got married, she had, I'm traveling all over the world. I had negative net worth when we
Okay.
got together. My wife, on the other hand, had lived at home, had worked hard, had saved her money, had gone without a lot that she could have had. And when we got married, she had $25,000 saved up.
Okay.
So we are renting an old farmhouse, and I have this real estate bug in me. Um, I go out to breakfast with a family friend of theirs, and this guy has like 10 single family homes, and experienced investor. And I'm asking him, all about real estate, and he says, "You know what? I have a property that I thought I was going to buy, but I'm not able to. But perhaps this would be a good one for you to get started with." I said, "Okay, well, how much is it?" And he said, "Well, it's $25,000. I was like, "Okay, all right." So I go home, and I'm one that is always on high alert. I want to learn from other people's mistakes and not have
Okay.
to learn them all myself.
Uh-huh.
So while I was in ministry, I'd heard a number of men that I really respected make this comment about, "I wish that I'd learned earlier in life to respect my wife's vision and her intuition,
Okay.
because if I would have, it would have saved us a lot of heartache." So I'd already decided that I wasn't going to make decisions without being in unity with my wife. So when I talked to her about it, there wasn't any like trying to sell her or convince her or any of that. Um, but she did not like the idea. She didn't like it
Okay.
at all. And we're talking about it. And I don't have any problem, if she's like legitimately feeling like this is not for us. But I wasn't sure that that was where it was coming from. So she finally says, "Let's go talk to my parents." I'm like, "Sure." I don't have a ego in this. But as we're driving over to her parents, I'm realizing we're going to talk to her mom and dad about using her life savings for something that I think is a good idea, but I have no experience. I have no money of my own. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of a tricky situation. So I decide I'm not going to open my mouth. Like, I'm just going to listen. So we get there, and they asked me for some details. Like, I gave the basic details, but then I shut up. And Kristen's explaining, this isn't what you guys taught me. We still rent, and now we're going to take all of our life savings and spend it on a house for somebody else to live in. Like,
Uh-huh.
this doesn't make any sense. And that we'll never forget her dad saying, "Sweetheart, if you want to get ahead in life, you have to take risk." Every time we do these big developments that her dad's company does, we put everything on the line, and you have to do that to get ahead. So while it was good advice for her as a young adult to save her money, at
Mhm.
some point that counsel changes to, "Hey, you can play it safe or you can go for it. And this looks like a good opportunity to go for it. So that kind of helped her realize, this isn't the craziest thing she's ever heard. And then we were able to evaluate it for ourselves
Okay.
instead of her feeling like this is going against everything my parents have ever taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we're like, hey, let's do it. So bought our first rental property while we were still renting somewhere. And that's how the journey started.
That's amazing. Hey, we're going to take a quick break and be right back to figure out how that journey has progressed. Be right back. Money with Mission is a real estate and business investment company that specializes in finding projects that have the potential to give you a great return on your investment dollar and make an impact in the communities where we invest. Make a difference in your life and the lives of others. Go to moneywithmission.com to learn more. Welcome back. We're still with Michael. Michael just talked about how he and his wife bought their first rental property for $25,000, which was their entire savings, and they didn't die. They kept on going from there. How long did it take for you you said after you started, you were financially free within 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah. So from that first one, about 3.5 years, a little bit less than that. But so after that first one, we bought our next one the next year, a year later, and then got the wonderful news my wife was pregnant.
Okay.
And she wanted to stay home with our kids. So I started looking for a property that was big enough to be able to replace her income. Do you want me to give you details on this one, or?
No, let's go ahead. Well, now that we brought them up, people probably now want the details. Go ahead. Talk about how that went for you.
It was really unbelievable to us. So I actually found a property fairly quickly that would just barely cover her income.
Okay.
So got it under contract. We're high-fiving, like, oh, this is amazing. Until I got a call from my realtor on a Saturday night. We'll never forget it. And she said, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but we lost that property. So we're still under contract. It's before we bought it.
Okay.
He said, we lost that property. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, what happened? And there was an intricacy in the contract for a mortgage commitment date that the appraisal wasn't done yet. So instead of giving us more time until the appraisal came back, they canceled our contract and had another buyer lined up for a few $1,000s more.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So lost the thing. It felt like the provision for my wife to stay home was just being taken. So I was upset. I was pissed. I went to bed very upset that night, woke up the next morning completely at peace.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is not normal. But I knew what that meant. God's got something better for us.
Coming. Yeah.
So what ended up happening was the same seller didn't know what his realtor was doing to try to the realtor was trying to get him some more money, but it was shady. Yeah. And the seller didn't like that. So he had saved his best property. He was selling out of his whole portfolio, 25 different properties, had saved that one and his next one. So he put his best property on the market. We saw it, gave him a really low cash offer, and he felt bad because of what his realtor had done. So accepted our offer. And this property, so we bought it the last day of the year, refinanced it. So we bought it with hard money. If you or your listeners know what that is, so high interest rate, but we didn't want to put any contingencies in the contract for it to get canceled on us again. So we got a hard money loan, high interest, very risky. I don't recommend that to beginners like I was, but we knew this property was for us. When we went to the bank, it appraised for like $150,000 more than we bought it for. Okay. So the bank paid off all the hard money lender, put $15,000 of cash in our pocket, and gave us a $75,000 line of credit to keep going. Wow. But more than the line of credit, what I learned was I don't have to have my capital tied up in properties. So I call that an infinite return. when I don't have any of my invested capital in a property, yet I'm still owning an asset that's paying me every month to own it. So that just flipped a switch in me where I realized I didn't have to be limited by my own capital. And that was when we bought 50 units in less than 2 years from that point. And and that pushed us over the top for financial freedom.
There you go. I want you to say one more time what infinite return is, because I that's a very important concept that most people who are not doing investing, or even the lot that are, don't understand.
Yeah.
Explain it, infinite return again.
So it's not necessarily easy to do. It takes financial education, but you can own real estate without any of your dollars tied up in it. And when you do that and the property is still paying you, you don't have any investment to calculate a return. So it's called an infinite return. So if a property is paying you money, but you don't have any of your own dollars tied up in it, that's called an infinite return.
Gotcha. And if for to make it even more simple to me, I think about if you're in Vegas and you brought $100 in and you won another 100, you take your 100 off the table, everything you make from there is house money. It's an infinite return. Just exactly what Mike just it's really
Great way
easy
to
to
put it.
understand. You have no money in the deal and you're still making money. It just keeps on going. That's beautiful. That's something that we really, really work for in real estate investing. So it takes a bit to get there. It's not like Michael said, it's not an easy thing. It's not usually a first step thing. You usually got your own money in and you're stressed about it and there's all this stuff going on. Not to say that infinite return isn't stressful. The getting there part is not, it can be some stress too. Michael doesn't ever seem to be stressed to me though, but I'm sure he is doing
I feel some
that's
pressure from different times, but yeah.
mostly your peace comes fairly quickly, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's amazing when you feel like you're in partnership with what you're supposed to be, what you've been put on the planet for.
Okay. So you guys now you've gotten your own business, you're running things, you're financially free, and then you want to go back and educate others. So you started your Elevate Investing group. How long ago that has that been? How long ago did you guys start that? And tell me about what's going on with that.
So that really came out of that financial freedom point. You know, I had built this idea that I was going to retire, and I did for about a week, and then
Mhm.
all my energy came back, and I felt like from God that I've not created you to go through the rest of your life on your easy chair.
Okay.
So that was a good motivator to achieve that, but it was completely empty actually once I got there. So my wife and I reevaluated everything. You know, we could do anything we want. We're free now. What do we want to do? What do we feel called to do? And after a lot of prayer and talking, realized I love what I'm doing, but it'd be so much more fulfilling to help others achieve it,
Hmm.
do deals together and build a community around real estate investing. So that's what we've done from that point. We moved to a syndication model of our deals,
Uh-huh.
and often we didn't even need other people's capital, but the goal changed from let's just see how much we can own, how much money we can make, to let's do this in community.
Hmm.
And that's how I got to meet you through some of the real estate investing groups.
Yeah.
Um, and learn syndication. So between the syndications and the Elevate Investing group of our community, that's really where we spend the bulk of our time.
Okay.
And you know, at this point, it's really fun to buy real estate. It's really fun to make money. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But to hear someone say, "You've changed my life. My family's future will never be the same because of what you've taught me." You know, those kind of messages that I get now are so much more fulfilling than just buying another property, even though we still do that.
Well, yes, and you could just do that and then be on your own, and you and your wife and your kids are off doing your thing, making lots of money. What I love is exactly what you said, helping other people who had no idea, because we had to have a flashpoint. We had to have that point that taught us and showed us how to get there. Now I want everybody to know that and be able to do that from, and like you said, not make mistakes like I've made. You wanted to keep
Right.
people from making mistakes that you've made, and we make them and we get up and we move on and learn from it. That's really, really amazing. And you guys do some other things. I know at one of your meetings you raised some money for orphanages. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is amazing. At our last summit, so the last 2 years, we've done an annual summit event for 2 days, flying speakers from all over, attendees from all over. And I had this idea to build an orphanage at our summit. And again, just kind of came out of the blue, but I felt like that was something that we were to do. So partnered with a group called Angel House, and they build orphanages in Nepal and India. I've actually known the founders for many years. Great organization. So I went on their website, and their smallest home was, for $20,000, you could save 12 kids. Ground up construction, furnishing, the whole bit for 12 kids. I was like, man, that'd be amazing. But $20,000 is kind of a lot to raise from an event where people aren't coming there to give, they're coming there to learn. I showed the website to my wife, and she's like, why would we do the small home? The big home is, we could save 50 kids. And I was like, well, yeah, but it's $50,000. So I'm like, hey, if you're thinking we can do that, let's go for it. It was amazing, the response that we had. Our speakers donated items to a silent auction, donated experiences. People gave outside of just the auction, and we raised over $120,000. So we're building 2 homes, saving 100 kids, digging freshwater wells for each village where those homes are going into, and also supplying the kids with school supplies, backpacks, shoes, the whole thing. And we'll be dedicating those in June of this year.
And this is the kind of thing that can happen when you are free enough. Michael was able to free his mind once his family was financially free. They were set. They could do whatever they wanted to do, and decided to give back, and are giving back in amazing ways. The ripple effect of those orphanages and how those kids are going to do, we can't even guess, but it's going to be huge. It's huge. Thank you so much, Michael. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. Michael, how can people get in touch with you?
I would say, shoot me an email.
Okay.
Michael at investelevate.com.
Okay. And then we'll have that in the show notes for anybody who is driving or whatever. You have a meetup group, and we'll have that meetup group information in our show notes. You're still doing the meetup group?
We are still doing events. The meetup has taken a back seat while we're getting through COVID here.
Okay.
And we'll probably roll that out again, but we have some events coming up this year.
Okay. Are you doing them virtually, or are you are going to be live at this point?
Depending on how things open up, in the summer, we'd like to do them live, but they'll probably be a combination of live and online.
Okay. So you don't necessarily have to go to Lancaster. Follow up with Michael, check out his website. All that information will be in the show notes. I really love this group. You can hear the great things they're doing, and there's lots of education. If you want to be or do real estate investing, this is a great place to go. Thank you so much, Michael, for being on. I really, really appreciate it. Well, by the way, listen, if you want to get my ebook, How to Create Wealth That Outlives You, also talks about infinite returns, go to my website, moneywithmission.com, and pick that up. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Felicia.
I hope you enjoyed the interview and are inspired to give your money a mission. Until next time, send your investment dollars into the world to bring you a financial return and improve the lives of others.
You've been listening to Money with Mission. There are projects happening right now where you can make a great return while positively impacting the lives of others. To learn more about today's guest or to download 7 steps to building resilient wealth for women, visit www.moneywithmission.com.